All right, what is going down, everybody? Welcome back to another Am I Still on the Air? You know what it is. This is your one-stop shop when we come together and we break down something very specific, and you can see here what it is here tonight as we're going to talk some spoiler review when it comes to Wonder Woman 1984. That's right. We finally, after a million years, got the sequel that we've been waiting for. But did we? We'll talk about that. But yeah, joining me is my buddy Frigginz. What up, man? Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, DX. It's awesome to be back on the show. So stoked to talk about Wonder Woman. Can't wait to break into the nitty-gritty and get into all the fun details.
Yes, yes. So, as you know, we do spoiler-free reviews on the main show. So every time a real big blockbuster kind of hits the market, we try to come together and bring you the spoiler reviews so we can actually talk about it in more depth, talk about what we liked, what we didn't like, where is the franchise going, things like that, that we'll break down. So, you know, I'm excited to break this one down. Obviously, this came out on Christmas Day. A lot of people saw it, whether you saw it on HBO Max or whether you saw it in the theater. I actually saw it in both formats, so I have a couple different takes on that.
Props to you. Props to you.
Yeah. Saw it Christmas Day, of course, on HBO Max, like most people, and then went to the theater earlier today and saw it again for a second time. I was supposed to actually have seen it 3 times by this point, but I decided to pass on the second showing that was going down yesterday, obviously because I did not absolutely love this film as I had hoped to. I was really, really high expectations, hoping that we would see something really, really cool. I think the hype just got to me, man. I think waiting as long as we've waited for this damn film. I mean, this poster's been up on the wall at my movie theater for like 5 years. So I've just been waiting and waiting. Originally, this movie was supposed to come out in 2019, and it got bumped. And unfortunately, I bet they regret that decision because it got bumped into a year of a pandemic. Theaters shutting down and just uncertainty all the way around. So yeah, this thing was supposed to come out in April, and of course the pandemic hit strong in March. Theaters shut down, so of course it got bumped off its April date and went to August, and then they moved it from August to October, and then October to December, and here we are. Hell of a ride, man, to get to this point. You know, this is the 8th film in the DCEU. You know, it's been quite some time. I mean, our last movie was Shazam, which is almost 2 years ago at this point in the DCEU. And
I think it's 9, actually. Isn't it 9 now? I don't know, something like that.
I'm pretty sure it's 8 because I have my list here, and I know you did your list already over on Letterboxd.
Yeah, I'm pulling it up right now.
Pull it up because
I got 9. I got 9 on the count.
What? So
what are we missing? We'll figure it out.
How do you got 9? Did you put Joker on there?
Because I did not. I did not.
So what the hell could we be missing? Oh, you know what? You're right. I'm missing Harley Quinn on mine.
Oh, there you go.
Birds of Prey.
Squeeze that in there.
Yeah, so I'll have to readjust that. See, I totally spaced that one. Another film from earlier this year. So it actually hasn't been as long as I thought. Because
it's crazy because that doesn't feel like that happened this year, you know? Like that feels like that was so long ago based on the year we've been having. So I could see why you could miss that one.
yeah. Birds of Prey feels like 2 years ago at this point. Like I can't believe it's a 2020 film as well. Man. But yeah, man, so pandemic hits, right? So we bump multiple times. Was very bummed by the August push because our theaters, at least here in Arizona, had opened back up. I thought for sure that August date was going to stick. It got moved mainly because of Tenet. And I understood at that time, Tenet was the first big movie to hit theaters. And that's another Warner Brothers film. So they decided, hey, let's give it some more space. So they bumped Wonder Woman to October, and I said, okay, cool, whatever. We can wait another couple months, and we'll see it in October. And then as we got closer, bumped it again to this Christmas Day, and then it was looking like it was going to get bumped again.
Yeah.
And then the HBO Max deal kind of came into fruition, and they said, hey, we're going to do a day and date streaming thing with it. Basically, it's going to release to the world on HBO Max, but it'll also go to theaters same day. And I know a lot of people were kind of like, some people were really pissy about it. Some people loved it. I know somebody like for you haven't really gone to the theaters since the initial shutdown. You're still rocking, I think, Bloodshot as your last.
Yep, Bloodshot's still the last one.
Yep.
Man. I've been close a couple times and kind of was getting ready to risk it. And honestly, like to be straightforward, like talking with you and you mentioning how comfortable it is and the spacing. And one of my other buddies, he lives in California where they're like way more restricted, and him saying the same thing about how the spacing is really comfortable and all that. Like, it's definitely intrigued me and got me to be like, maybe I should go and check this out. And I've gotten close, but like, in a case with Wonder Woman where it's like, you have the opportunity to watch from your couch on Christmas Day, like, or go to a theater, pay some additional money. And, I would have anyway if it was normal world, but
Right.
at the same time, I went ahead and, factoring in what's going on and everything, it was just like, this is a better decision for me. But yeah, you're right. The theaters are there. They seem to be working. It's just not a lot of people are going because they're probably more like me, where we're being a little bit more cautious.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. I think a lot of people don't even know that the theaters are open, to be honest.
Yeah.
I think that's another big misconception.
True.
That's really hurting, because I'll tell you, they reopened at the end of July, like we said, for Tenet. And as much as there hasn't been very many movies that have been hitting theatrically, so we've gone to the theater as often as possible. And yes, I agree. They do a great job. It's super clean. There's cleaning wipes, like literally in front of every single theater. I've seen them spray it down in between showings. They're not working a full schedule. There's a lot of time in between showings, and then like the last showing of the day is at like usually like 6:30 or 7, so they're not doing super late showings. It's there's not a lot of people in these movie theaters, I'll tell you.
I bet.
Every movie we've gone to has been less than 10 people in a theater. So to me, it's a safe spot to be in because it's socially distanced, nobody's sitting around you, and I don't see the harm. I think it's more risky to go to a store or go to out to eat or anything else right now. There's way more crowds than anything else you're doing in your life than there is at a movie theater. So
that's such a great point. I went to the grocery store and I like literally turned around and walked out because it was so packed, and it was like people just shoulder to shoulder, and Premiere description, it's like, that's actually way better.
It's not, and especially at a theater, like I know at least for like the AMC here, when you purchase your tickets, especially if you're going in a group, you purchase next to each other, and then it automatically will space out the seats for the next person that buys their tickets. So I know some other theaters, like when the theaters first opened and we saw New Mutants over the summer, we saw it at a Harkins, and it was kind of a clusterfuck. Like they just it was like you could only buy pairs of seats. So it was like 2 seats. And then if you went with a bigger group, they tried to spread you out, which sucks. When you're with a group, obviously you're trying to all sit together. You're okay with that. So Harkins did it a little funky, but AMC does it to where you buy your group seats and then they space it out. And you can also reserve theaters as well there, which is fantastic. That's what we did earlier today when we saw it the second time, and I saw it in the theater. It was actually my whole family. We rented the theater, $150, and you can bring up to 20 people to see it, and it's just the theater for you and your friends. So that was fantastic as well. You don't have to worry about anybody else. So the theater's experience has been awesome. Like I said, it's funny because the most packed movie I've gone to since theaters reopened was we went to, I think the 30th anniversary of Empire Strikes Back. And that was the most crowded theater we've been to since everything reopened. Everything else has literally, like I said, been less than 10 people, if not 5 people. I know when we saw Monster Hunter a couple weeks ago, it was like 5 people.
Ooh, yeah, I can imagine. I'm surprised.
And we saw it in the IMAX. We saw it in the IMAX, and it was like us on the top row, and then like 2 other people at the bottom, and that was it. The entire theater. So you got nothing to worry about, man. Come to the theaters. Let's support the theaters. Especially for me, I'm an A-list subscriber, and I feel like I haven't even been getting my money's worth lately because the whole point of that is that you get to see up to 3 movies a week, and it's all one flat rate, and you can see anything and any showing anytime you want. But we're only going once or twice a month, if that. And
yeah, because we're lucky to get one movie out a month.
Yeah. So Hollywood panicking, pushing everything back, and then this HBO Max deal slid in. And like I said, there's a lot of, people like me are like super stoked that you can still see in the theater. And then people like you, people like my wife didn't want to really go to the movies. Like, so same thing, like, just kind of like, oh, HBO Max is great, and, but I'll tell you, and we'll get into it more later, but, my second viewing, seeing it on the big screen was more positive than it was watching it at home. I
can imagine
there's something to say for that.
For sure, because even watching it at home on the TV, I saw a couple scenes where I was like, I bet this would look so much better on that big screen, especially IMAX. I mean,
Yeah.
with the sound and that gigantic screen. I mean, there's just so many moments in there that I think was really intended for that. And same with like Tenet, even New Mutants, and Soul and a couple other things. But yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's just, and of course, there's just the side to it where you're devoting 100% of your attention to it. You know, at home, you just can't as much as you want to. Exactly. You're picking up your phone, you're going to get something to eat, something to drink, you're walking around, I'm going to run to the restroom. Like, just different things are happening, and then you end up missing little chunks here and there. You're not paying full attention.
Right.
And so it takes away from that a bit. So watching it today and watching it 100% focused on the big screen, I walked out saying like, wow, that was actually better than my first viewing. Like, did it totally drastically change my opinion? No, but I did enjoy it a lot more the second go around. I didn't feel like it was as sluggish as I did at home. And that could have just been, and for me, my experience too, I watched it after I saw Soul. Like, I watched Soul first and then immediately jumped into Wonder Woman. So I just watched a 2-hour movie and then jumped into a 2.5-hour movie right after. That could have played into the fatigue part of it too, of just like, I've just been sitting on the couch this long and I've already been watching, so it messes with that. But yeah, being in the theater, that was cool. But like I said, originally we were supposed to see it in IMAX yesterday as well. And after my first showing on Christmas on HBO Max, I was like, yeah, I can't do this 3 days in a row. It's not that great. So we had to, Geeky Pat and I, we were like, we're just going to call it good. And we're going to skip the second showing, because I knew I had to do the one today with the family. So I
actually had a question for you, because you talked about the hype, and I know we need to get into it, but this is kind of starting phase question. So like, you talked about the hype and how everything was amping up and you were getting like really excited for it more and more. For me, when we did our top 10 most anticipated last year, right before we did that, the trailer came out, or maybe a little before we did that, but before I saw the trailer, Wonder Woman was like literally like my number one most anticipated, because I was so in love with that first movie. I thought that first movie hit on every point, except for maybe the ending. There's a lot of like, arguing about that, but nonetheless, it was a phenomenal film. I mean, so good. She brought so much to the character. But then like I was super, super stoked. But when I saw that first trailer, I actually had the opposite reaction, where I became less interested. And it was so funny, because I think Peeps might have been with me, and a couple of my other buddies, and I talked after the film, and I was like, that trailer made me like it less. And they were all yelling at me about how I was being stupid, and I'm like, no, something's off. And it was just so interesting, because when we did the show, I think it was like number 6 or 8 even on my list after seeing the trailer. So for me, the hype was going down every trailer that would come out. But then the more it got pushed up, it actually did kind of help the hype come up a little bit, because it was just like, oh, I want to see it already. And so I was just curious about your road, because mine was kind of like this, and then kind of back up a little bit towards release.
Yeah, I was never really hype on the trailers either. I think the marketing was a little poor. I mean, I dug the 80s vibe. Obviously, it's in 84, and, they're using the soundtrack that they did and stuff like that. I was like, cool, but we really only got one real good trailer for this movie. Sure. I mean, there was only 2, I think, in total over the 3 years we waited for this thing,
which is surprising.
Yeah. I mean, and that plays into later when we talk about just, I feel like a lot of the bigger beats of the movie was in the trailer, and then for being only one trailer, usually, we don't see enough. And with Wonder Woman, I felt like all the big action beats were in the trailer, and there was a lot that there wasn't much surprise, getting into it. So I kind of carried that momentum too. I think for me, it was a culmination. I know when we did our most anticipated list, it was number 5 on mine. I went back and looked at it to see it was number 5. We almost didn't even get it this year, because most of our anticipated 2020 list did not come out.
Nope.
As things continue to get pushed back. So, we thank HBO Max for swooping in and kind of helping out the cause. And it seems to have worked. I mean, kind of even on a side note again, but I mean, just earlier today, HBO Max saying how excited they were by just the enthusiasm, and just, they said like over 50% of the people subscribed streamed it in the first 24 hours. And
nice.
They were losing their mind at how popular it was on the network. And then on top of it, even theatrically, it made over $16 million in the US, which is, it sounds little, but at the same time, that is massive. The biggest movie, so Tenet made 9 million in its opening weekend, and then literally every movie since has made 2 to 3. So like it's been very, very low, and for it to make 16 shows you that people would come out to play, and that's with half the country's theaters shut down. You know, so like typically you would stream on 4,000 or more screens. It was only playing on 2,000 screens, so half and limited capacity on top of that, because these theaters are only staffing, you know, they're only filling 50% of their seats. And it still made 16 million. I mean, once again, it's something I've been saying from the beginning of this. If they would just release the damn blockbuster movies and stop pushing them back, people would go. This is why I'm so pissed that Black Widow keeps getting pushed back, because I'm like, people would go see it, like, you know. And if it made 16 million and it was available to see on for free for HBO Max subscribers, that just shows you, what if it wasn't available on HBO Max? I mean, it would have made probably 30 million and probably would have doubled up. I mean, and that would have been great for them. So it's a big win for them on both ends, you know, for theatrically and streaming. And, you know, so today the news broke that they were fast tracking number 3 already, with Patty Jenkins coming back, obviously Gal Gadot coming back. So they're going for a third one, man. I mean, you know, it was only a matter of time. We didn't even make it out the weekend, and they're already like, it's coming, it's coming. So, you know, so, I mean, it's good stuff. It's really good stuff. So it finally hit. Let's get into it. You know, this is the sequel.
Spoilers.
Let's reiterate. Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert. We're going to talk about everything in this movie, you know, and like I said, things we like, things we didn't like. Let's kind of just, we'll go around the table. We won't hit this movie beat for beat, but just kind of, you know, overall thoughts. So, you know, the movie takes place in 84, as you know. She's hiding in the shadows, saving everybody. I will say, did you get a like Superman vibe out of this movie? Like, I totally got like the old school Richard Donner Superman 2 kind of vibe from, you know, like that's like an homage that they were kind of trying to go for that.
Absolutely. You could tell from the smallest details of just the lighting and just the cinematography that they're using. Some of the shots were even almost, you know, page for page of I don't know if you say page for page. I was kind of going into comic book lingo there, but, you know, shot for shot of some of those Donner films, especially in like the air flying scenes and stuff like that. But for me, what really stood out to make your point was the coloring. The coloring was much brighter, and it gave it, you know, and I'm not talking about like the 80s, like neon, like the background that you have. I'm just talking about like the light. Maybe lighting is the better term, because everything in DC has really been in shadows and darkness, and this is, they just put the light right there in front of her and let it shine.
Suit was brighter. That lasso glowed like no tomorrow.
Yeah,
I mean, they definitely brought it up. I mean, I definitely got those Superman vibes, even from a story standpoint. You know, Superman giving up his powers for Lois, and like kind of just that going through that whole thing, and then realizing, you know, what he needs to do and how he's a bigger symbol of that, and kind of the same beat here. You know, like, so she, you know, you meet her, she's kicking ass, she's doing great. I love the whole, I'd say first hour of this movie, I really, really dug. Like, I thought the opening, going back, the flashback to Themyscira and showing the contest with her as a little girl and then cheating and not being able to win. That whole opening sequence I thought was fantastic. And then going right into the mall scene, I thought was great as well. I mean, her flipping through the mall with the lasso and just saving everybody was very lighthearted, very throwback to an 80s type of movie. The vibe that I got off of it, of like, oh, the bad guy is stealing the artifacts. And then she comes in and, you know, saves everybody and secretly, you know, saving the kids and smashing all the cameras so they don't have her on video. All that opening stuff I thought was great. I was really stoked in that first, you know, 45 minutes or so. What did you think about kind of that beginning part?
Yeah, so I am typically turned off from a film when they do the whole like, let's show the kid intro and have the kid moment, and like that normally usually pulls me out, because I'm like, okay, whatever, let's get through this. I need this background to be able to move on to the next phase. So normally I don't like those type of scenes, but you're right. This one I actually think was really good. I was surprised and really shocked to find how captivated I was by that competition, and I was like actually really zoned in about what was going on. So that was very, very shocking to me, and I was just in the fact that I enjoyed it in general. So like from that being the starting point, I was like, all right, cool, I'm in for some good stuff. And then I was also surprised that they immediately went into kind of that mall scene and kind of throwing more of the action back at you. But that's where I shifted, and I kind of departed from where you were saying like, okay, this is still that fun energy, where I started seeing the light almost immediately, going, oh crap, I don't think this movie was made for me. What I did enjoy though is when the criminal was like, no dude, don't put, what are you doing? And the guy like picks up the little girl, and all the other bad guys were like, no, don't do that. Like I thought that was actually kind of a cool little twist. But no, man, it immediately shifted and took a turn to, in my head I was like, crap, so all the DC movies have been like these dark, like made for adult films, and I instantly was like, ah, crap, this is made for kids, not for me. And I just had that concern right off the bat in that mall scene.
Concern, yeah. So I was a little worried too. I mean, because I was like, if they keep this tone the whole time, it's going to be one of those things that we make fun of, with some of the other movies. Like we made fun of, Jamie Foxx's Electro in Spider-Man 2, and just that, Jim Carrey, Riddler, and Tommy Lee Jones Two-Face, like just that over the top kind of, Joel Schumacher-ish kind of stuff. And It's just like, I was feeling that way too, but I was like, okay, it's 80s. They're trying to start off with this lighthearted kind of like, she's operating in the shadows. You kind of just see, remember in the beginning, like you don't see her right away. Like she kicks the car, and then she saves the bride that falls off the bridge.
Batarang thing.
Yeah, until she comes swinging in and has that big moment. And I don't know. I just really liked it. I was just kind of like, okay, hopefully it's just this early kind of stuff, and it'll kind of move on from there. So it didn't turn me off as much as you, like right out the gate. But it was a good starting point. And, so basically we find out she's like working at this museum, and then she bumps into Barbara, played, Cheetah, played by Kristen Wiig, who, by the way, I thought Kristen Wiig did phenomenal in this. I honestly, I think at the end of the day, like, especially after watching it 2 times, I think everybody did their roles fantastic in this. Like, I don't think any of the problems for me were any of the acting or the characters or anything like that. I thought everybody did what they could with what they were given. I thought Gal was fantastic as Wonder Woman again, just her emotion, just the way she carries that character. I love it. I thought I was really happy with Kristen Wiig because I like her a lot, but obviously she's SNL. She's a comedian. Like, I was like, when they casted her, I was like, oh, that's an odd choice, but I kind of dig it at the same time. And then, but seeing her go from, the dumpy kind of nerdy chick in the beginning to becoming powerful at the end, like that was cool. Like I thought she did a really, really good job. I liked all her scenes. Pedro Pascal just as Maxwell Lord. Oh my God. I mean, Mando.
I feel like he could do no wrong. Like he does everything he's in is just amazing.
He bought into this, man. He was giving it what he could. I did not care for the character. Yeah, and I thought his part of the storyline was super convoluted, and that's one of the big parts that I hate about this movie is he's just that weird kind of villain that's like, give me more, give me more, give me more, like just never happy. Like he could have just been cool with the fucking all the oil, and then he had to just keep going and going and going, and just the whole like, we'll get to it in a little bit, but but I thought everybody did great. I really did like the casting in this. I thought everybody did a phenomenal job.
I echo exactly what you said, and coming in at first when they announced Kristen Wiig, I was just kind of like, really? But then I started really thinking about it, and Cheetah is a character that I've never really cared about personally. Like, she's always been there, and that's kind of Wonder Woman's Joker or whatnot, and it's kind of like whatever. But like for me, I've always been more interested in her fighting like Ares or whoever else. But so at the end of the day, I kind of thought, well, even if it seems like an odd choice, I don't really care. So let's just see what happens. And I'll say that she did fine. I mean, my problems with the film have everything to do with the tone, kind of the story and plot and all those types of things, but it really wasn't anything to do with the cast. Like you had just said, like everyone that was in the cast, I think did fine. They did, in some cases, extremely well. Yeah. And of course, I'm a huge fan of Gal Gadot. She's like perfect for Wonder Woman in my eyes, and I want her to be Wonder Woman for as long as she can. But yeah, so right there with you as far as the cast goes.
Great. Yeah, so basically she meets Barbara, who's, just been freshly hired, and they find out she's going to be the one kind of checking out all these artifacts that they got back from the robbery at the mall that we saw earlier on in the movie. And of course, basically the whole story revolves around this stone that they find. It's kind of a wishing stone that's been given from one of the other gods, like the god of mischief. I was like, where's Loki at, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So they have this stone, and obviously Gal sees it. She can read Latin. She understands what it is. And this plays out exactly what I thought from the trailer. I felt like the way they had posed the trailer, a lot of people were like, I don't understand how Steve Trevor back and this and that. And I was like, I felt like, they were playing a lot of the whole, Maxwell Lord, like, what do you want? What do you wish? And I'll make it happen. And you could tell that's where they were going with Steve coming back and with Barbara becoming Cheetah, and, that there was something there. And so, so she makes the silent wish, like, oh, I wish, Steve was back. She still isn't over Steve Trevor after all these years. And of course, Barbara makes the wish that she wishes to be like Gal, right? Like, she's like, I want to be like Diana. I want to be strong. I want to be fierce. I want to be beautiful. I want to be everything she is, not knowing that it would also make her like Wonder Woman. It would give her everything else that she has with her. Yeah. So you could see she starts to kind of morph, right? Like, she's better, balanced on her shoes right away. And then just, and just when she wakes up the one morning, pulls the refrigerator door off, and she's like, oh, it's kind of weird. So, and then of course Maxwell Lord wants the stone as well, because he knows that he can do the wishes. He grabs it. He wishes to become the stone.
That was like what?
He's like, I want to be the stone. This is what I wish for. And it just disintegrates. And now he's a genie, I guess, and can go around. But like I said, that was very convoluted, because like half of the movie he's like dying from using it so much. And then other parts he's great with it. Like, it was all over the kind of place with it. I thought he was going to morph into something else by the end of the movie, but he didn't. But, so basically, they go to this gala, and she meets this guy who ends up becoming Steve Trevor, but he's this other dude. Everybody sees him as this other guy, but she sees it's Steve. Like, his consciousness has been brought into this dude. So that's how they kind of somehow brings, Steve Trevor back. Chris Pine again, who is awesome in this. He's great with Gal. I love their chemistry. Like, they're definitely one of those comic book couples that just seems to work on screen. You feel it, she's so happy to see him after all the time, and everything. So that was all cool. I like how that played out. He brought the more lightheartedness to the movie, his humor and just kind of being the man, like almost Captain America-ish, like being the man at a time, and seeing, planes and, trams and all the music and the clothes and everything like that.
It was cool to see their role reversal, where she was like coming into the world that she didn't know about. Yeah. And then he's now in her shoes, essentially, from that first film. So that was kind of cool to see them play on how the other is dealing with the other. Like the one scene I really liked, and it did get ruined in the trailer, but when she's like, this is art, and he's looking at the trash can, and she's like, oh, that's a trash can.
Oh, trash can, yeah. Yeah, or I like the parachute pants. Is everybody parachute now?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So, some of the one-liners that were great in the trailer that they ruined. But so basically, yes. So fast forwarding kind of through everything. I mean, it's really all about this stone, right? Like Maxwell Lord getting the stone, trying to become the all-powerful, getting everybody in power to grant him wishes. And in return, he kind of takes a wish at the same time with it. So it's kind of like, I'll give you what you want. You get one wish, but then I also take what I want too. So he's becoming more and more powerful, and then Diana's trying to get the stone back. But you can see early on, like she's starting to weaken, like her powers are starting to phase. She gets shot at one point, and you're like, what? Like I remember being like, that's weird. Like, I can't believe that pierced her. But then I had, felt like they were teasing that even earlier on when she tries to break into the garage, and she pounds on the lock like 5 times before it actually breaks off. And Chris Pine's even like, that's a real strong lock, and I was like,
right before he said that, I said the exact same thing. I was like, damn, that's a strong lock.
Yeah. I'm like, she break this little padlock off this garage. So like it's weird too, because her powers kind of come and go at a certain point, because it's like she can't even break a lock, but then goes into this big fight scene later on and is like doing all this crazy stuff, Right. But you can see it kind of coming and going. She gets shot, when she lassos to try to save the kids on the freeway, and it slides out of her hand. It cuts her hand because she can't hold on to it. things are happening, and then they find out, of course, plot point, the wish is, it gives you something, but it also takes something back at the same time. And unless you renounce your wish, you're going to lose something, basically. And of course, hers is Steve, right? She wished for Steve. She doesn't want to give it up. Of course, Barbara's like, I don't want to give this shit up either, because she's getting stronger and more powerful. And, so she's like, I don't want to do it either. So that leads to the big fight in the White House, with them kind of going back and forth, and her being like, I'm not going to let you do this. I'm not going to let you stop Maxwell Lord, because we need our powers. And she's, so they get in a big fight. Wonder Woman actually gets her ass kicked at that point, and then that's when Steve's kind of like, hey, you just gotta let it go, and I know, so backing up a little bit, and I don't mean to be all over the place, but like, so because I didn't want to go beat by beat, but I also want to touch on bigger moments in the film. So like, number one, I want to know what your opinion is on, so at one point Maxwell Lord goes to Egypt, and so, Steve Trevor's like, oh, a plane can go to, Egypt in one flight. And she's like, yeah, and then all of a sudden she has like a key card to get into like an airport, and they steal a jet. And I'm just like, number one, I didn't understand where her key card came from, because it seemed like she had access to be there, but then they flagged the jet starting up immediately as somebody was stealing it. So like, what was your interpretation of the whole damn airport scene? How did that even play into each other? It's super confusing to me, even after seeing it twice.
I feel like there's things in film where you just kind of got to go with it. Like, I don't, where it's just like, look, we just need to move this story along. So, and they wanted to add some sort of tension. So it's like, oh, well, if people pick up a radar that they're, so like, I can explain away that she has somehow this passport to this airfield, because she works for the Smithsonian, and like, I think it said something about their property or something. So maybe they have like old planes that they've procured, right? Or jets that they've procured that they're going to, decommission and maybe put up at some site. So I feel like she had access to maybe several warehouses or something, because, she's worked her way up over the years. So she's like a top dog, right? And when we see her in the first Wonder Woman, and her first, in the today's time frame, she's like, I don't know what it's called, that awesome pyramid building. So like, she's got, high access level security at that point. So I figure she is probably at that same level, just in the 80s instead of, modern times. So I assume she has some sort of access to these warehouses. And then, I think because they didn't notify anyone that they're going to fly, that's when the cops were like, oh, okay, there's this jet's going away. We don't know anything about it. Where she probably could have just made a phone call and been like, hey, yo, I'm taking this or something.
I don't know. I know I just work at the museum, but I'm going to take one of these jets up in the air, if you don't mind. I don't know. I feel like they could have played that a little bit better.
Well, here's the other problem.
It could have been something she procured throughout the years, right? Like it was her own kind of like, little off the beaten path kind of airfield, and she had stored planes throughout all the years she's been around,
Maybe she knows somebody, maybe she goes and talks to somebody. Someone is, she has an in with somebody, and they let her in or something. But the other thing is, Homeboy hasn't flown a plane since World War I planes. And like, look, I'm not a pilot, so maybe it is the same thing, but I have a suspicion it's probably quite different to fly a 1980s jet than a World War I era airplane.
Yeah, and he only pressed like 2 wrong buttons, and then he's like, "Oh yeah, it's these." Click, 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 and then they just take off.
He's good to go.
So I definitely want your thoughts on, of course, the next piece here that comes out of this, right? So they're like, hey, there's a plane on the runway, and the police are coming and all this stuff, and Gal starts kind of whoosh, 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 and he's like, what are you doing? And she's like, my father hid the mascara, with this special kind of cloaking stuff, and, I only tried it once, and I made a coffee mug disappear, but I'm going to do it on this jet, and, she touches the jet, and it goes invisible, right? So we get the invisible jet from the Wonder Woman lore. They did it in kind of in a cool way. I mean, it was more realistic. They kind of, she had this power, but I'm like, where the fuck did this power come from? And then and then for something that she's like, I tried it once, like 20 years ago on a coffee cup, and then now she was able to do it with a whole jet. Seemed a little quick to do. And they definitely left it open to be that the jet could just be invisible forever now at this point, because he says to her, which I didn't catch the first time, but he says to her, like, how long will this last? And she goes, I don't know, because I only did it with the coffee cup and I never found the cup again. Because she lost it because she made it invisible.
Because it's invisible.
So, hey, so the jet could be invisible from now on.
I didn't like it at all, man. I got to tell you. Like, right when this was happening, I'm just like, oh, because, look, you can't just magically give her these powers for one random detail. Like, there's other ways that you could work that into the story. I mean, at minimum, it could have been a wish, especially if you're never going to use the jet again. So who cares if it goes away at the end of the wish, right? So I don't know. I mean, I think
already made her wish.
Well, someone else could have wished, and maybe they just bumped into it. Oh, there's this invisible jet. Right?
That would have been so worse. They just bump into an invisible jet.
I ain't trying to say that I'm not the writer for Wonder Woman, but I'm just saying, like, I would have preferred she have it. Maybe that's what she has in her own thing. Maybe someone she knows, like, does that kind of magic and put it on a plane for her. Different. There's a million different ways that you could come up with, and I think for her to just randomly have this thing was so stupid. And does this mean she's gonna, like, start throwing invisible things at everything now? I mean, why would they not? Like, why would the Justice League not all have this invisible vehicles and techs and whatever?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I thought it was a little forced. I think they could.
It was a little forced, but I kind of geeked out over it. I thought it was kind of cool, and it was a cool moment flying through the fireworks and stuff.
Oh, that's the best scene. I don't want to pass that.
Yeah, okay.
I definitely don't want to rush over that. That was my favorite moment in the whole film. Was, like, as much as I hated the way they created the invisible jet, I loved the fact that they had the invisible jet in there, and that scene when they fly through the fireworks was amazing. That's literally where I was like, I wish I was in the theater right now. Like, that would have looked so cool, especially on IMAX or XD or whatever you got. But, like, it would almost make you feel like you're there in the cockpit, like, looking around, because that seems like a cool idea to do. But yeah, I just wanted to mention that was probably my favorite scene of the whole film, even though I didn't like the explanation of the invisible.
You didn't like how we got there, but when we were there, it was cool. But yeah, I thought it was a really cool scene too, and just, like, seeing her kind of watch him geek out over it, and then him just being so in awe about, flying through the sky on 4th of July and having the fireworks go off and stuff. And of course, we get the explanation of what it's like to fly, right? Being one with the air and kind of coaxing through it and joining with it and stuff like that, which plays into later in the movie, which I had a feeling it was coming. I was like, I feel like, we're dropping a plot point here. Remember this. We'll go back to it later.
Yeah, I thought it was a foreshadowing for her to drive the plane. I didn't think she was actually going to fly already. I was like, whoa.
Yeah, see, no, I thought the opposite. But yeah, cool moment. And then of course we get to Egypt. That's where the big highway scene chase goes, where she's fighting the tanks and all that kind of stuff, where she starts to lose her powers more. And then we go back, we're at the White House, we have the big battle, and then Maxwell Lord convinces the president to pretty much let him do whatever the hell he wants in exchange for more nukes. So yeah, like, okay, cool, done. And then we go to and this was confusing too, because it's like, where was this place that they went to that had all the television cameras? Because it felt like it was super far away, but like but when he goes back to DC to get his son, like, he's there in like 2 seconds. So I'm just and she flew there real quick too. So I'm like, it made it seem like they were on some way crazy remote island, but then they were there super fast on all occasions. So I
it's probably like at the top of the hill, at the closest hill to DC, and maybe by a lake or something.
yeah, maybe it had to have been close. So they get in that big fight. Barbara ends up going with Maxwell Lord to this bunker where they have this technology where they can beam, a television signal to the whole world, and he feels this is his way to reach everybody at one time and grant all these wishes and basically destroy the world at the same time. Like I said, Barbara's getting stronger at this point. He grants her like an extra wish. Like, he's like, hey, I'm feeling generous today. Like, what else do you want? And she's like, I don't want to be like anybody. I just want to be an apex predator. I want to be badass. I want to just be my own thing. Which obviously turns her into Cheetah. And I want to stay on that subject for a moment, because I felt like I felt a very big missed opportunity with Cheetah. Like the whole point of Cheetah is to be Cheetah, and we got her for about 5 minutes in the entire movie, actually in that state. And we didn't even get to see her turn into it. Like I wanted like a werewolfy kind of like, oh, my hands and like what's going on, and her getting the fur, and like, you know, it's like she just pops up and it's like, oh, Barbara, what have you done? Like, you know, and it's like, what? Like, and they have this like quick 5-minute fight, and then it's like over, and then it's like, okay. So I don't know, what was your take on the actual Cheetah reveal?
It's similar. It reminded me of the old school techniques that they used to use in film, where they have the guy that's transforming to the werewolf, where he's like, and he goes off screen, and then he comes back, and it's just the werewolf mask, you know? It definitely reminded me of that, where the transformation is happening off screen. I think, you know, is it important that we see that? Not necessarily. That didn't bother me as much, but it, you know, in today's technology, today's film, that's something we normally get. So I do feel like we missed out on something that we would normally have otherwise had, especially over the fact that they extended the movie an additional year. Like you said, originally it was supposed to come out in 2019, and they pushed it back to 2020. So I feel like there's a missed opportunity there to maybe figure a way to make that work. Or maybe they tried and it just didn't work, and maybe it looked terrible. Who knows? But the other thing is they spent a lot of the time for that ultimate fight at the end was between them two, because there wasn't going to be a big fight between her and Max Lord. So I think that we should have got more out of that fight than what we did. And for a film that had took such drastic measures to be in the light with brightness and, you know, everything shown in color and staying so far away from the dark shadows, it was interesting to see that they once again went into a huge CGI fight at the end, covered in shadow and darkness, moving very, very quickly, where we can't really see exactly what's going on. So that was the biggest complaint people had for Wonder Woman 1, was how they ended it in that last fight scene. And I feel that they kind of did the exact same thing again. So it was almost like, we're doing stuff so different because we're so much brighter than the other DC movies, and we're more kid friendly and all this stuff. But then you come to the end and you do the exact same thing you did before. So that was a little problematic for me in that sense. And I agree. I wanted more of Cheetah. You know, as soon as we saw the trailer, you know, they show her face off with Kristen Wiig in that like cheetah print outfit, and I was like, she's gonna be only Cheetah at the very end, you know. And so we knew we were gonna get you know, cheated out of it.
I don't remember. I was worried for a long time, especially after that first trailer. I mean, we didn't see anything of her as an actual cheetah. So like, I was like,
fandom.
I thought for sure they were going to cheap it out. And I was like, oh my God, they're just going to put her in leopard print. And like, that's going to call it a day. So like when we finally got the other trailer where she shows up at the end, you know, it was like, oh, okay, cool. But such a missed opportunity. I mean, like you said, Cheetah is almost like her Joker, and like she's such a big character for Wonder Woman. I was so stoked that they were going with Cheetah, you know, like, because I mean, my daughter even knew who Cheetah was because she watches DC superhero girls and stuff like that, and Cheetah's always been in it, and you know, in multiple versions, and like, so like, we were all aware of this character, and it was such a cool moment. That's why I wanted to see her morph into it. I wanted to see her struggle with like what's going on, and dealing with kind of changing, you know, like I felt like they started to tease it, especially I caught it on the second go round when Max Lord first goes live on the televisions and he's talking. Right. They kind of pan to her on the wall, and it looks like she's kind of starting to be in pain or whatever, and she kind of slides off the wall to the side, and it's like, I'm like, I wonder if there's a deleted scene somewhere like of it, and they just felt like, oh, we don't need this, and chopped it out.
I think so.
It just, we needed more, man. I mean, like, honestly, that fight even in the White House should have been her as Cheetah, you know, like, I don't know if they needed to wait until the very, very end to do it.
Because that could have gave us the light scene, you know, where they were in the light during the day. That would have looked amazing to see, like, you know, the colors of her, what kind of cheetah look does she have? What does her, you know, fur look like or whatever? But then, and the fact that we got just another dark CGI fight was a little disappointing for sure.
Yeah. And just a very quick fight with all the big moments being what we saw in the trailer. I mean, you know, just honestly, all the big beats were in the trailer. Her showing up in the gold outfit, you know, stuff like that, like, you know, which, you know, was another kind of loosely plotted kind of thing of like, like Steve Trevor sees the outfit in her office and is like, what's this? And she's like, oh, it's the armor for this great warrior that belonged to my people. And that kind of got thrown back to the beginning too, in that opening sequence. The thing comes out of the ground, and it's oh, everybody wants to be like her. She's the great warrior, and you find out about this suit and how she held back all the gods so that all the women could get away. Because this suit is so tough, which is funny because they're like, the suit's so tough and it keeps out all these dudes, from like all these gods, and then like Cheetah like slashed it to pieces in like 2 seconds, like while they were fighting. She was just clawing at it, and it was just falling apart.
When the chunks were flying, I was like, "Am I seeing pieces flying off?"
Exactly.
Like, what? I thought this stuff was supposed to be badass.
I know, she kept closing it, and then it was just like cling, 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 and pieces are just falling off like crazy.
Maybe it's just to say how strong Cheetah was, right? She's that much stronger.
All the gods couldn't get through that, fighters. Armor, but
yeah. Those guys look like 300 warriors from the 300.
They did totally. So those just some gripes on the Cheetah aspect there. Hoping to see more, and they definitely left it open. I know Patty Jenkins said she left that kind of ambiguous with her at the end. She's back to looking like Kristen Wiig at the end of the movie, sitting on the mountaintop. So it's like a couple different things. Did she renounce her wish? Which she told Diana, I'll never do that. And then it's like, is it like a Hulk kind of thing, now? Like, can she just chill out and like it goes away, and then they can kind of play that angle too, where she can kind of morph back and forth? I
think that's probably the smartest bet, because like, especially in early comics, she wore a cheetah costume or whatnot, and now it's a form. That's how her body is. But like, I think about, if you think of it in cinematic terms, like for Beast, for the X-Men, they, instead of having the blue furry guy the whole time, they made it where he can kind of transform back and forth, and that's, I think, that what they're gonna do with her in the future, if she continues to be in the future ones.
Yeah. And they could always play the role too. I know supposedly in some of the newer comics, she actually becomes like an ally to her. So they could bring her back in more of a positive light. And
I'm sure they will.
Where they cross paths. If they do maybe I hope they go present day with the next one. To be honest, like, I'm kind of tired of all they went way back, and then we went 84. We got it. Let's get up in the current timeline now. That'd be nice for once. Yeah. I know they kind of keep trying to do these other things to kind of keep themselves in their own pocket, right? It's before the Justice League, right? So they don't have to worry about any of that other stuff. But at the same time, they could still do a solo adventure with her after Justice League and be fine with it.
This brings problems though, because like one of the things that really stood out for me and bothered me was like, as a story plot point, if the modern day is supposed to be in a version of our world, but slightly different. Like, no one ever mentioned, oh, what about that time when this like rock wall just grew in the middle of Africa? You know what I mean? Like, I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's been so old they just don't talk about that moment in history in the movie that we see. Maybe that is known history to the characters. I'm not sure. But when you mess with stuff in the past, it could impact what happens in the future, depending on how drastically you address it. Because if you're going into a film like, say, Superman, that you're tying in, and Superman's supposed to be the first time that people have been seeing these strange things, then wouldn't someone have been like, well, what about the wall back in the 80s, or when Max Lord was on TV making people have
Remember when everybody got brainwashed in 1984, but no one talks about it? And magical woman talk to the world.
Exactly. And even Wonder Woman, like the fact that, she's making a big splash, like going around saving people and these things. Like, why isn't that, you think that would have impacted people's surprise for heroes later on when you get to modern times. So I just think that while it is a good way to have that pocket, you have to have it contained in a way. So like, for example, with Wonder Woman 1, it was really well contained in World War I story, because back then they didn't have a lot of the video footage and those kinds of things that you would have even in the 80s. I mean, everyone still had.
That's why they only had that one picture that Bruce had,
exactly. So that made sense, and it was all during a war, so a lot of crazy stuff was happening. She could fly under the radar, but when you come into the 80s, I think it brings too much technology and issues. And so I'm with you. I just want them to be in modern times. Like, let's skip this like past. If they come back with number 3 being in the 90s, they're going to be like, man,
right. 1996.
Yeah.
God damn it. Yeah, because think about it. I mean, if Bruce Wayne, Ben Affleck's Bruce Wayne was at a pretty decent age in
Yes.
1984. Like, like, come on, like he never heard of this. Nothing rang a bell, when he was putting the team together and all this stuff in BBS.
Absolutely.
So yeah, definitely some plot points there. So but yeah, so they, before they get to the island, she says goodbye to Steve. Steve's like, you got to let me go, you got to renounce your wish, like you're losing your powers, you're dying, like the world needs you more than it needs me, I've lived a good life, like do it. So they kiss one last time, she runs away, and it was really cool because I actually didn't hear her say I renounce my wish the first time I watched it, and then caught it on the second go around. But it is cool because as she's running, you see where she was shot and everything kind of just go away.
Yeah,
and she heals up and she starts running faster and faster, and then she whips into the air, and that's where we get our big flying moment. So she hears the Steve stuff talking about, be one with the wind, and it's how you coax through it, and she starts kind of gliding with it, and then goes into the Superman pose and kind of takes off with it. And I like the way that they did it. I thought it was kind of cool the way she used the lasso also. It was almost like Thor, she kind of whipped it and then threw it, and it kind of tugged her along to give her that boost. But I thought that was a really, really cool moment. I'm a sucker for flying kind of scenes, and obviously she does fly in the newer comics, and that's something they haven't really kind of touched upon. I felt like they teased it at the end of the first Wonder Woman movie, when at the very, very end, she's up on the rooftop, and then she hears the sirens and she jumps off and kind of, and I always took that as she was flying to the next destination, which could be because that's present day and this was all before that. So but then once again, it goes back to why didn't she fly in Justice League and stuff like that, so right. Kind of a bummer there, and who knows, maybe in the Snyder cut we'll see something, but
yeah, she'll fly around a little bit,
right? But I love the flying stuff. I mean, I thought it was cool. I loved her kind of hearing and listening, and the way just that scene was really cool to me, especially on the big screen. That was a big screen moment for me, seeing her kind of through the clouds and through everything, taking that all in. So what were your thoughts on them kind of introducing the flying aspect?
I mean, it's similar to what you said. I think it was a great moment. Knowing the comics that she flies and everything, I was expecting them to eventually do that. I have to say, I didn't expect that for this film. So especially with like all the commercials with the gold suit wings, I thought maybe she would utilize that to fly somehow. But no, it was a good surprise for me. I thought it was done well. I loved the callback to the Donner film, original Superman style, like the whole, especially the turn in the air, like that. That was really cool. It's funny because I've heard some people complain about her whipping the clouds and the lightning. That's straight from the comic books. So like, that's stuff that they took from the art and just put it into
the movie, co-written by Jeff Johns. So
exactly. And he knows so much about comic stuff. And whether or not you like the story and him as a writer is a whole nother thing, but nonetheless, the dude knows comics. And so he's pulling it from the comic book lore. So that was really cool. I enjoyed the scene. I thought it was good. And for me, it was good that it was unexpected. I hate watching trailers because I feel like trailers ruin everything for me. And in this case, I was surprised that wasn't ruined for me. Although I wasn't even expecting it because, like you said, at the end of that Wonder Woman where she kind of jumps in the air, I just assumed she was flying. And I didn't even connect that she didn't fly in any of the other movies like BVS or maybe she did. I don't know. It's been a minute since I watched it, but I don't remember her
really
flying.
Yeah,
exactly.
Big leaps.
So yeah, it was a great moment, and I like the callback. I'll give it that. Again, my gripes are more with the plot and story than really anything else. So although I thought it was nice and different to have it in the daylight and being able to see everything was a big change. At the same time, you can actually see everything. So there were points where I was just kind of like, it does look a little cheesy. Like I feel like they need to put a filter over it to kind of like blend it in a little bit so it doesn't look so fake. But it wasn't bad. I thought they did a good enough job that it was a cool moment.
Yeah, so very cool moment. She obviously gets the gold suit. She flies to the island or wherever the hell they're at the end there. Has the big epic 5-minute fight with Cheetah that we talked about, and then obviously goes to stop Maxwell Lord. Of course, he's just on super villain mode at this point. Like, why stop now when I can have more? Everything's more. And so then he's trying to broadcast to the world, and you're seeing wishes happen all over the world. It's falling apart. Everything's going crazy. Nukes are flying. And then she ends up giving like this really good spiel about, you know, like humanity and just, you know, everything. And then he's like, it's too late. And she's like, I wasn't talking to you, I was talking to the world. And she has the lasso around his leg, and she was broadcasting to everybody. And then people start renouncing their wishes, and things start to go back to normal. Nukes just vanish, and everything just starts to kind of, the wall that came up before just vanishes, and the water comes back down, and everything's kind of going back to normal. And then of course his kid is yelling for him and needs his help, and so he says, fine, I renounce my wish. And he goes, like I said, it seems like he walked out the door and was already there, like, and he's like, Alistair, like, oh, my kid, I love you. And he's a bad man, you know. Like, they tried really hard to make him like that villain that was just misunderstood, and he was bullied as a kid and all this stuff, you know, and that's why he just wanted all this power, you know, and like kind of wanted you to sympathize with him by the end of the film, and that, you know, he just wanted his moment in the spotlight, you know, kind of thing.
I like that they played with that, though. They kept him on the fence, because sometimes he was just still their wish and manipulated for his goal. But at this other times, he was just like, just tell me what you want. Like, I'll give you what you want. And so there was this interesting balance between, you know, he's not trying to, like, in some cases he would steal a wish from someone, like that guy with the traffic. Like, don't you wish the traffic would just
part like
so he's like stealing his wish. But in other cases, he was literally like, just tell me what you want and you'll get it. And so it was kind of weird to see that he didn't really care if people got what they want. He just wanted to make sure he got what he wanted. And
because
that was,
he said, I'm going to take something back every time I grant a wish. I'm going to get what I want in return.
Yes,
you know,
exactly. So that was interesting to see that play, because especially in the comics, like, Max didn't originally have powers, and then he gains powers. So that was kind of cool that they did that. It was different. His powers were different, but nonetheless, it was similar, like messing with people's minds and wishes. You know, it's kind of similar. But like, it was just, again, an unexpected aspect of a character that I wasn't anticipating. Although I'm curious to know what you thought about the whole, like, let me talk to the world and have the world do the right thing, to make their wishes go. Because, like, how does I wish for $1 million? How is that going bad? I mean, I guess someone's trying to steal it from you and robbing you or something could be the way it's going bad. But I just, I struggled with, like, okay, everyone in the world is going to be like, yeah, sure, let's go ahead and recount this wish now.
Yeah.
So, but that's not the point. I mean, you know, we're not supposed to be super real. I said earlier, we got to, like, have some, like, you know, it's just a film step and a process, because asking for us to be better people. But curious on what you thought about that outcome.
You know, it just felt like they were going for a forced moment that was kind of coming off the first movie. I mean, it's the same thing at the end of the first movie when she's fighting Ares, and after Steve dies and she really fully gains her powers, she goes through that whole dialogue about the world and humanity and and there, it was exactly that all over again, of like just trying to overbash us with like a message kind of moment, you know, like without an action beat, of just being like, the world's a better place and we'll always do the right thing kind of thing. So just renounce your wishes and let's do what's right, you know, kind of moment, which is cool. But you're right. I mean, in the real world, there's a lot of people who've been like, fuck that, and just been like, whatever, dude, whatever this chick says, just, you know, especially the people that were like, you know, like that one Chinese lady was just like, I just want to be famous. Why would you want to give that up? You know, like, you know, like some of the other bad stuff. Yeah. But, you know, but I guess the other side of it too, the flip of the coin, was the fact that you're giving something up for it, you know. So what was that going to play into later down the road? You know, the world was going into chaos, you know, because everybody was making all these wishes. So
what good does it have if you have $1 million if everyone's raining nukes on your head? Yeah,
exactly. If the world was going to blow up in 2 minutes from that, any moment.
And I also didn't like too that they did the whole you know how, like, in the movies, the big thing is, like, all the bad guys are connected to the one big brain, and if you kill the brain, they all fall over dead. Like, that was kind of the vibe I got. Is like, as soon as he cut it off, we literally saw the camera rewinding, like the explosion going back into the ground and stuff like that. And I was just, that bothered me a little bit. I thought that was a little.
Well, they set that up earlier in the movie, though. I mean, that was the whole point, was that if he got defeated, all the wishes would stop. You know, everything would go back to normal. And that's why, you know, Barbara was so anti, like, no, we're not going to do that, you know. And then even Diana at that beginning point was like, we got to find another way, because she didn't want to lose Steve, you know. So she was like, well, we'll find a different way to do it. But yeah, I think it's just the easiest way to do it in a scene like that. Some of
Sure.
the world's too effed up at that point. So by him saying, I renounce my wish, kind of took away that magical power that he had, and kind of just
to be able to give
started
any
to
of
put
them
things
away.
back to
Yeah.
normal. I think it was still causing everybody else to renounce their wishes too, though.
Sure. Sure. Yeah. If he goes away, I felt like all the other wishes disappear, right? Because they all came from him,
Right.
except for maybe Cheetah,
Yeah.
and so she doesn't recant. If he had no impact on her wish, maybe that's why she was not in Cheetah form. She was in Kristen Wiig form. But remember, Kristen Wiig still had that strength and that power.
Yeah.
She got the Cheetah form once Max gave her the next evolution. Right. So if that's gone, maybe she still has the power from before he became the Stones.
I don't know. Does it though? Like, does the second wish go away, but the first remains? I mean, because the whole point of the second wish, her whole first wish was to be like Diana, and so the second wish was, I don't want to be like anybody else. I want to be my own thing. So it's like, so if that gets renounced and she doesn't want to be like anybody else, does she still get to keep Diana's powers? Like, I mean, I don't know. It gets convoluted at that point.
It does.
And like I said, just for plot purpose, they left it very vague, just so they can go any way they want with it. Yeah. At that point, but yeah, I mean, that's pretty much the whole movie in a nutshell. I mean, he recants everything, and the world starts to go back to normal, and we get our kind of happy ending. She bumps into the guy that Steve became
during Christmas time.
During Christmas time, it was a cool moment. It almost made me wonder if they added that scene on at the end. Because once they pushed the movie back to Christmas Day, I'm like, did they just add this in like last minute, just to kind of go with that Christmas theme? Because the movie was never a Christmas date until the very end.
Does this make it a Christmas movie?
I know, right? That's what I was wondering. Is a new Christmas film for us all. But yeah, she bumps into that guy. They have a really cool kind of conversation. She's wearing the outfit she picked out for Chris Pine earlier in the movie, and he's like, do you like it? And she's like, yeah, it looks great. And you get that kind of nice moment. She flies off at the end, very Superman-ish, kind of hearing the sirens, and then, down to go stop the day. And then that's the end of the movie. And of course, we get a nice little post-credit scene of like a little town. And it looks like Wonder Woman walking through the plaza, and things start falling, and she catches it. And the lady's like, oh, you saved me. Like, who are you? And she turns around, and it's Linda Carter, our original Wonder Woman, who is that Astera chick, that they talked about from the Golden Armor earlier in the movie. Gal Gadot earlier in the film had said at one point, like, we don't know what happened to her. Like, I found her armor, but we never found her. So now we know she's still out there. I'm also hearing mixed things on, like, do they go forward with that, or is that just kind of an Easter eggy kind of thing to be like, hey, on one hand, we're paying respect to the original Wonder Woman by having her be this ultimate warrior role, and then really do nothing with it? Or do we maybe play into that in another movie down the road? I mean, so again, it's kind of loose, but not much to. I was hoping, again, I guess my hopes were just too high, because I keep hoping that they would start to lead her, like I said, into the present day and into something more current, and maybe with another superhero or something. And they seem to be so gun shy with doing that with her, other than the side version of her that's in Justice League. But like, I felt like they went with the safe after credit scene for sure. So I don't know. What was your thoughts on that?
Same. I mean, it was cool, because to me that was them just saying, hey, Linda, we appreciate everything that you brought to this character. Like, let's give you just this cool little moment. They kind of made her be this character that I don't think has anything into the overall story of what DC is trying to do with all their characters and pushing their cinematic universe or whatever. So I totally think it is fine where it's at. I don't need her to be a main character in the third, but at the same time, like, she is a historical point of this character, and so many women our age grew up with her as Wonder Woman. We grew up seeing her in that show, or and I think she really has hit on some people as far as being the original Wonder Woman, and bringing something interesting and exciting to this world. So I could see them bringing her in the third movie, especially because, like, they brought Linda Carter into the DC Fandom event. They had her with the whole cast. Everyone seemed to, love being around each other. So because of that, I kind of do think that they might try and pull her in somehow into a storyline beat for whatever the next thing's going to be. But like you, I hope that when they do that, that they do that in modern time, and we can stop the time jumping stuff because I think we're good. You did your thing. Like, we're good to be in the modern times now.
And I hope that if they do use her, that they use her in a positive role. I hope that they don't go with the generic, like, she was the great, Themyscirian warrior, and now she's the ultimate baddie in the third movie that she has to fight. Oh my God, it's Hystera, and I can't compete with that. And, I don't want that generic kind of like, the Amazons turned their back on me, so now I'm, like, I felt like they were teasing her to be a good person in that mid-credit scene. So I'm hoping that if they do decide to go into that in the third, that it's not just like her against her idol, being her idol's bad and destroying the world, I
feel like she'll be more like the person that shows up at the end and does the self-sacrifice to save everyone else kind of thing. Like, I feel like that would be more appropriate, because then you're still showing, paying homage to what she did as the original Wonder Woman and being like a hero savior. So we need, I don't know, I did quotes for that, for being, the hero savior, and she could continue to do so in this new form. So I definitely don't think that they'll go the bad route, at least, and I'm hoping so. But looking at the tone that we got in this film, I also feel like they wouldn't do that, because this tone and the direction of the film, I already mentioned, like, in the beginning, that I initially, right off the bat, found out that this movie was not made for me as the prime audience person. I think that because of their change in tone, that tells me they're going to keep her good and in a positive light as well, going forward in Wonder Woman films. Not to say anything about how Wonder Woman or other characters will be portrayed in other Justice League movies or whatever, but specifically a Patty Jenkins Wonder Woman film, I feel like they're targeting, especially younger girls, as probably the main target for this, which is totally cool. But because of that, that's why I think they'll kind of keep her in the positive light.
Okay. Well, let's talk negative points. So we talked about the movie in general, kind of all the big story beats. So I know you gave the movie 2 stars at the end of the day, which, I like, for me, 2 stars is like, it's just okay. Like, it's just okay. So like, is that kind of your overall view, like, on it? Like, it was just, when it was all said and done, but what were the big gripes that you had?
For anyone like listening that hasn't been following Don or too much, hopefully you have been. But it's 5-star. I kind of match what you do, Don. Like you've talked about on your other shows, where 1 sucks, 2 is okay, 3 is good, 4 is really good, and 5 is perfect, right? So I kind of try and
perfect as it can be.
As it can be, yes. There might still be some problems.
There's no such thing as perfection, but sure. Does it hit all the beats that I wanted? That's kind of a 5-star.
And so for me, the main thing I wanted to say, and this has been a big struggle, because every time I'm on Twitter talking about a movie, and someone's like, "Oh, I hated this movie." Well, I love this movie. I hate it.
And this movie is that, man. I've been paying a lot of attention to it, and it very much seems to be I loved it or I hated it. Like, there doesn't seem to be any middle. I feel like I've been the only middle ground on this movie, whereas like everybody else has just been one side or the other side of the fence. It's crazy the gamma that I've seen from Facebook to Twitter, of literally you could be going through Facebook and like one post will be like Wonder Woman 84 was epic, and then the next one's like, oh, I'm so disappointed in Wonder Woman, it sucked. And it's just like, oh my God, like literally just one view to the next. Like I had posted on my Facebook earlier today when I saw it in the theater, like second showing this time in the theater, and a friend of mine commented and was like, it's not going to change anything, it's still going to suck, and I was like, well, it kind of did change something, but but like it's just so weird, like the gamut on this one here. So and I know like right after you watched it in our group chat, you were like, I can't wait to talk about this, and at first I couldn't tell if you were positive about it or if you were negative about it, because you wanted to talk about it so bad, and it could go both ways. And it was funny because earlier in the day, Geeky Pat had already texted me and was like, dude, I didn't like it. And I was like, and I remember texting him back being like, because I hadn't seen it at this point. So I texted him back and was like, shut up. Like, just fucking with me.
So I was joking.
You're just trying to rile me up. Like, because remember, we had tickets for Saturday to see it in IMAX, and he was kind of like, yeah, I don't even know, man, if I want to go sit through this thing again. And I was just like, stop lying. Like, I'm sure it's not that bad. And he was like, dude, I'm telling the truth, man. I didn't really care for it. And he said his wife didn't really care for it either. And I was like, really? And then you came in, and I couldn't tell if you were positive or not. I actually ended up going on the Letterboxd and looking at your profile just to see what you thought. And I saw the 2 stars, and I was like, this son of a bitch. This son of a bitch with his 2 stars. So, and then I ended up watching it late Christmas night. Because like I said, we watched Soul first, and then we jumped into it. So I didn't finish it till about 10:30 that night. And I was like, oh man, I'm a little disappointed in that too.
That's so funny.
And my wife didn't care for it very much either. But she felt the same way as me coming out of the theater, that it was better after watching it in the theater. Like, she liked it a little bit more. Like I said, at the end of the day, it doesn't change the problems that there were in the beginning, right, where we originally felt. But it was more enjoyable, 100% devoted watching on the big screen. But yeah, she was very divided on it. I fell in that 3-star-ish area because I was like, it's good, I enjoyed it, but I was thinking for sure 4-star, 5-star. Like, I just thought it was going to be amazing. And once again, that could just be expectations as well too, and that might be why I enjoyed it more the second time in the theater, because I'd already seen it, I already knew what to expect, so I actually ended up enjoying it more on the second go around. But tell me, going back to you and just the 2 stars, like, okay, so what were the things that pissed you off and brought you to that 2-star review?
Well, just to be clear, this is my rating is based on my experience and my enjoyment or lack of for a film. I'm not saying like, this is it for everybody, but this is it for me. So I like certain things in movies. This pretty much didn't hit on anything that I like in films. For me, some of the negatives were, first and foremost, the targeted audience. I got a shift of that target audience from, if you look at all the other DC cinematic films, so, I'm talking specifically DCEU, not like The Dark Knight or whatever. Yeah. Everything is dark, and, that's been a criticism for him, but that's something I've enjoyed out of it. So that has been targeted more towards me. So I've, liked those aspects of most of the characters. But I think that the shift to being targeted towards more of kids as a kid, or being more kid friendly rather, that was unexpected. And I felt like I should have had a warning label, so that could have prepared me for what I was walking into. So that shock was there. We talked about how like all the actors did decent jobs, but I didn't like a lot of the script. I didn't like the plot. We talked about the problems that the plot had. So much of the jokes did not hit. I didn't find funny at all. There were some that were good. We talked about a couple with Steve, and there was even a couple he even had, though, like especially when they were doing the change, the different outfits, like aside from the parachute pants comment, like that whole scene, I was just kind of like eye rolling, like, oh man, like everything about it was just.
Who loved that scene? My 7-year-old daughter.
Exactly. See, that is amazing. That is.
She
awesome.
Went to when we saw it in the theater today. They ran to the bathroom actually right before that scene, and so she missed it. And then when she came back in, she went, "Did I miss the clothes changing scene?" And she was all mad about it. And it's so funny that's what stuck with her, was him changing clothes. Like,
that's hilarious. Like, but that's my point.
That like, point, yeah.
That's who it's for, and that's amazing. And I'm glad that that's there for those people, but that it's been targeted for. But I'm not that target, so I didn't like it, and I didn't enjoy that. And that whole rhythm of, that whole overarching theme that had carried out through the whole film was just too strong for me. Like, when I started this film, I turned off all the lights, I cranked up the sound, I sat down, and I had my glass ready to go, and I'm like, hell yeah, I'm so stoked. And like literally, like after the mall scene, I got up, I turned the lights on, I got some food, and I was just kind of like watching from the side. Like, that fast I didn't care for it. I didn't like, so I thought Kristen Wiig did a good job, but we talked about how we didn't like how Cheetah was handled. Max, I didn't like how he was handled. I wanted him to be that darker, eviler kind of person than even he was. So it was just an addition of all these things, and I fully admit that that's on me. Like, I was going in expecting certain things, and I didn't get that because that's not what they decided to do. But I based those expectations off of what we've seen so far in all of the DCEU cinematic universe. So I just felt like I wasn't expecting such a drastic shift in tone and direction of what they were going after.
Yeah, no, I totally agree on that. It's a drastically different tone from the first movie. You know, a lot of the same beats, but just, yeah, the tone is just so, and like I said, I think that happens with them trying to obviously do that homage to, like, you know, Richard Donner and the or earlier Superman movies. Like, it definitely just had that vibe, and maybe because it was in the 80s, like, that's just the way it came together. But yeah, the 80s,
That
yeah,
bothered me too. I forgot to mention.
Yeah, do it.
Oh, I didn't mean to cut you off. I was just going to mention the fact that it was in the 80s bothered me. Like I like it. I was born in the 80s, and that time frame of stuff is good. Like, for example, Stranger Things is amazing. But like the fact that it took place there too, I think provided limitations to it. And we kind of talked a little bit about the problems that come from being in the past and stuff like that. So anyway, go ahead.
No. So yeah, so I mean, so for me, my biggest negative takeaways are just, number one, the runtime. I mean, and I do want to specify, because I've had a couple people be like, you know, how can you say this is too long when we've had things like Endgame be 3 hours, you know, and stuff like that. There's a difference. Yep. I mean, there's a big difference. This movie is 2 hours and 34 minutes, and it doesn't need to be, like, whatsoever. And I think it hurts this film because it's drawn out. There is a lot of boring points in this movie that could be taken out. I mean, this felt to me, I mean, you get Wonder Woman right away with the mall scene in the beginning, and then you don't see her again for like an hour. Like, I mean, honestly, you don't really see her again until Egypt. And then after that, you don't really see her again to the White House fight, you know, and then obviously at the end in the gold suit. But like, it's like 3 or 4 times in a 2.5 hour movie. Like, this is a Wonder Woman film with not much Wonder Woman. And it's the problem like I had with the Dark Knight trilogy, you know, that Christopher Nolan did, because he was very little Batman in those movies. And that always drove me nuts, was that it was a Bruce Wayne movie and with featuring a cameo from Batman every now and again. And they did that with this a lot. Like, she was just Diana for most of the film. And not to take away from Diana, but I mean, but I'm wanting to see Wonder Woman, and I want to see her kicking ass, and I want to see, you know, more fights. And I think there should have been a bigger fight with Cheetah earlier on in the film. That should have been in addition to what we got leading to that big face off at the end after she's morphed, you know. And it just to be that long, I felt like there was only a couple big action set pieces. It was the stuff we saw in the trailer. There was no surprises at all when it came to the action pieces. Like, I mean, the only surprises we got in this movie were her flying and with the invisible jet, like, moments. There were some surprise moments, but surprise cool scenes that I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe they did that. Like, no, like, it didn't really happen in this. Like, and that's a problem again. Like, you know, like, I want to see action. It's a comic book movie. Give me action. And there's only like 3 action scenes in this entire movie, you know. And like I said, just too long periods in between where she's not Wonder Woman, and we're just, where's the Rock at? And I got to find the Rock, and we got to adventure here and adventure there. And so just, I thought it was poorly paced. I thought the time was too long, and I just thought it wasn't enough action, and no surprise action to me is the bigger point. Like, there's just everything cool that happens action wise you saw in the trailer, from the Egypt fight on the road to her fighting in the White House, to her fighting Cheetah at the end. Like, literally every single one. And we saw a lot of the mall scene in the trailer as well, too. So,
we saw the gold suit in the trailer. We saw riding the lightning in the trailer.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Yeah, so that was the disappointment for me, you know, and yeah, so those were the big gripes. I think we talked. Was there any other positive points that you really walked away saying those were some of my big moments?
Not really. I mean, like the biggest positives that I had, I mentioned, like the beginning with the younger Diana. I did enjoy that scene. I found myself more into that than I ever expected. And of course, we talked about the fireworks in the jet scene. That was really, really cool. Apart from that, like, literally struggling to, because I didn't enjoy the fight. Oh, I take that back. The initial fight choreography, I do enjoy how she fights, and I
Yeah.
thought that was cool that she still has her style. Like,
Mhm.
they didn't take away her fight style. So from the first one, she does a lot of these like
Yeah, the
sliding
slide
across
kicks
the
and stuff.
floor, and yeah, those flip type things. I really like that style. So I will give it that, they did at least incorporate that consistency, which I enjoyed because I didn't feel like I lost anything from the first movie to this movie. But apart from that, I really didn't enjoy much. I mean, mostly it wasn't a bad movie. Like, I didn't hate my life after watching it, but but I didn't have a good time. Everything was dull. I was bored. There was only a handful, those couple moments that I mentioned that I really like was captivated by. And honestly, I feel like I never have to watch it ever again.
Wow.
I've seen the first one a ton of times,
Yeah.
and I will never intentionally put this
You
movie
said
on.
the first one's your favorite of the
It's
DC,
my favorite of the
and then this
DCU.
one's last.
It's last.
Look at
Spoiler.
that, see?
Yep.
Yeah. So look at that.
Yeah.
I mean, I will agree with you. It's last on my list as well too. Out of the 9 films, it would definitely fall last for me as well. I don't think I've given a DC movie less than 4 stars. And like I said, I give this one 3. Being fair. And like I said, I mean, again, liked it a lot more after seeing it theatrically. Definitely walked out with a bigger smile on my face, and but I still don't think I could have sat through it 3 times like in a row. Like, like I said, the original idea was Christmas Day on HBO Max, Saturday in IMAX, and then Sunday with the fam watching it, in the private theater. And we had to cancel that IMAX screen, man. And I felt bad because I was like looking forward to hanging out and seeing it with my buddy. But yeah, I mean, after he wasn't too stoked on doing it, and I was, after watching it that Christmas night on HBO Max, I was like, So yeah, taking that pass was smart, but maybe it made me enjoy the second go around that much more.
I did want to throw out, we often, well, not often, almost every single time, we do this with me, you, and Peeps, and occasionally Geeky Pat. Peeps couldn't be with us today, but he did want, I told him, like, I was going to, add him in a little bit. So I have a little Peeps popping up right here. And he's like, yeah, everything Fred said is perfect because, Fred is awesome and everything he said is right. So follow what he said. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. We still don't even know what the hell his thoughts are on this movie.
I have no idea.
He plays it so coy all the time. I'm like, dude, like, I don't even, like, he made it seem like he watched it, but I still wouldn't even be sure that he saw it. So
Same. But I think we should. Do you have your rankings? Do you have your?
I mean,
DC?
yeah.
Are we gonna
like I said, I'm only missing Birds of Prey, but I mean, I can easily slide that one in because I know where I would put it. That's why I said it's easy for me to know. I would have WW84 here at the number 9 mark.
Same. You want me to run down mine, or want to?
Sure, go ahead.
All right, cool. So for me, with the DCEU, I've ranked, and again, this is just with the DC Cinematic Universe, not including other DC films like the solo Batmans or solo Superman or whatever. So at number 9, I got this new WW84. At number 8, I have Man of Steel. At number 7, I have Justice League. At number 6, I have Aquaman. At number 5, I have Suicide Squad. At number 4, I have Batman vs. Superman. Number 3 is Birds of Prey. Number 2 is Shazam, and number 1 is Wonder Woman.
Yeah, we're drastically different on the DCEU for sure. Number 9, we at least agree on that, would be this Wonder Woman here, matching your number 9. Number 8 would be the Birds of Prey, Harley Quinn for me. Number 7, Suicide Squad. Number 6, the first Wonder Woman film. Number 5, Shazam. Number 4, Aquaman. Number 3, BDS. Number 2, Justice League. And number 1 is Man of Steel by a mile. I love Man of Steel. So for sure, it's going to be hard to shake that one out. But, as we know, we have the Snyder cut of Justice League coming supposedly at the end of March on HBO Max as well. So get your subscription if you haven't already. And it will obviously be released in a 4-part mini series. So 1 hour each week for 4 weeks. For a whopping 4 hours, which I'm super, super excited about. I'll be curious to get your take on it here in a second. But I mean, I know a lot of people are like, well, it's just the same movie. It's just a director's cut. But at the same time, I mean, it's really not, because most of what we saw in that theatrical version was reshoots that Joss Whedon did. And we know that Zack Snyder is not using any of that footage. It's also 4 hours. I mean, the theatrical cut of Justice League is 2 hours. So, I mean, this is literally an entire additional movie that you're getting with it. And then obviously being broken down into 4 parts. An hour a piece, and then supposedly there will be a full 4-hour director's cut that you can watch after they stream it as a miniseries, and it might even be released to theaters at some point, which I'd be totally down to see. So I'm super excited about it. Obviously, they did a little bit of reshoots. We've added a little bit more Deathstroke. We heard Joker's going to pop up in it, but Jared Leto again. I mean, lots of little additions. I mean, not much. I think Zack Snyder said in total there's like 4 minutes of new scenes that have been added in. Everything else was stuff that he had shot, before. But man, I'm excited for March, man. I'm excited to see what this new version, this new take, Darkseid, to see what his original vision was before it got jacked up. So I can't wait to see that. Hopefully, I think March 25th is the rumored date for that. So what's your, quick thoughts on the Snyder Cut?
At first, I thought it was just going to be another director's cut where it was going to be, 10 minutes of extra footage max. And after I started, learning more about it, especially hearing you talk about it and seeing the other stuff coming out that he was promoting, my excitement has actually gone through the roof. I could almost care less. Like I said, Justice League was pretty low on my list. And I actually am more excited now to see his full version. Now, there's things that he's done that I didn't like with BBS. There's a lot of that I have problems with, but there's a lot of it that I really like. So I'm hoping that, this new Justice League has more of those things that I really like. I can't wait to finally see it. The fact that it's going to be 4 hours, I'm super excited about, because I feel like we're going to get so much content that we don't normally get. We don't ever, I can't think of a time, so at least off the top of my head, where we've had a situation similar to this, where we have like a full interpretation of a film without a lot of that Hollywood producer interruption, the people behind the desks saying, oh, well, I want this and I want this and I want this.
And that's what happened to the theatrical cut.
Exactly. And so that's why I'm so excited to see what someone's full freedom interpretation is going to bring. And I can't wait. And if it really knocks my socks off, I mean, I may join you at the theater if they release that 4-hour one, because that sounds like a lot of fun if it's done well.
Right. Yeah, I mean, we'll see. There's a lot of hype. I'm sure a lot of pressure behind it. So, I mean, hopefully he pulls it off. I mean, I have great faith in him that he will, because I am a big lover of Man of Steel and BVS, and the things he's done, I'm super stoked on. And we know that, a majority of his Justice League was left on the cutting room floor. I mean, honestly, introducing Flash and Aquaman and all these guys for the first time, and we didn't get to see any of it. Cyborg, I mean, it was all just chopped out to really put this team together, and the original idea of the black suit Superman and all this kind of stuff coming together.
That's the thing I'm most excited for.
Yeah, and I wanted to see obviously more of Wonder Woman, and just and just seeing everybody together the way it was intended. And I'm a big fan of Ben Affleck's Batman, and I want to see more of it, and I can't wait to see his take on all that. So super excited about that. And then we'll get to see Wonder Woman once again on the mini screen and possibly the big screen. And then DC's next one out the gate will be the new Suicide Squad with James Gunn directing. Right. That'll also be HBO Max and theaters same day, kind of how Wonder Woman did. So we'll see how that plays out. But looking very forward to that Suicide Squad. I think that's going to be fantastic as well. Yeah. And like I said, man, Wonder Woman 3 fast tracking currently with Patty Jenkins returning, Gal returning, and we'll see what they end up doing with that. But congratulations to the movie. I mean, regardless of the general thought, it's done huge things. Like we talked about, 16 million opening weekend during the pandemic, blowing HBO Max's subscriptions out the water. It's doing exactly what they hope to do. And I hope that the box office has proven to people that, people are willing to go under the right circumstances. So, man, so there you go. Wonder Woman 84 spoiler review. Thanks, Frigginz, for joining tonight.
Of course.
For this special edition. Tell the people where they can find you.
I am on Instagram and also Twitter under @Frigginz, and that's Frigginz, Frigginz with a Z.
With a Z. So check out Frigginz over there. He's always tweeting about his dog and his runs. So
yeah, lots of dogs. Lots of dog photos.
Lots of dog photos. But hey, thanks for joining us. Always fun to talk about this stuff in more detail. Obviously, you know, when we do the next edition of the show, it'll just be a quick spoiler-free review that we'll talk about, but then we'll hype this baby up on top of it to get the word out there. But hey, as always, you can find me on Twitter at DXDonMega, and of course the show at Am I on the Air. Make sure you subscribe to all your favorite podcast platforms: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Spreaker, Stitcher, TuneIn, Podchaser, Google Podcast, all over the interwebs there, amiontheair.com. So thanks, everybody, and let us know what you thought. Obviously, Wonder Woman 84, did you love it? Did you hate it? Where do you fall on the scale? Because like I said, man, this is definitely a social media movie for sure.
Yeah.
Just seeing the gamma of reviews.
It's crazy.
Love it or hate it, but it's here, and it's doing good things, and we're going to get more. So hopefully with a different vibe, different tone, maybe positive in current present day, we'll get a way better turnaround on the next go around. So,
fingers crossed.
Right? So we're up one, we're in the middle on one, you know, so the next one hopefully will only go up from here. So but yes, so that is our Wonder Woman 84 spoiler review. Thank you all for joining, and we'll catch you on the next one go around. Peace.